Hi there. This is a special product and course that is entirely free, and it's dedicated to my mom. She gave me one of the most important lessons in my life, and it was to do with personalities. You see, when it comes down to understanding the human mind and how we all share a common connection of personalities within us, she strived to show you how these different qualities and essence from each apply to us all. With this, I aim to give you a breakdown of how she described each personality type, how each one interplays with each other, and how understanding your reaction to everyday events, schedules, and people you meet that will bring out each of these personality types within you and give you the knowledge to change those personality types. Going forward, I'm going to refer to personality types in a simple form of essence. She loved that word, and I believe it encapsulates everything really. To start, let's define what personality types there are. Controller, feeler, thinker, entertainer. When you think of each one of those, you can understand that each one has quite a broad spectrum, then that interlinks with each other. Obviously, you can't entertain someone without thinking, for example. This is to define the broad overarching concept and definition of it. The essence we want when we react to certain people or joyous events in our lives, or things we look forward to in our day, as a routine or hobby, we usually meet these with our most core essence. So in that regard, you would actually imagine yourself to be yourself, no strings attached, no trying to perform, and no trying to try to belong. It gives you the opportunity to just truly chill out. Now, on the opposite spectrum, we have different ways of dealing with stress and hard, traumatic events or sudden abuse from someone. Now, when we look at this scenario, we go into a different frame of perspective when analyzing your essence in these tough situations. The best way to look at this is to imagine what kind of personality type you go to when you feel threatened. For many people, it's their most vulnerable personality type, fight or flight. For others, it's a question of whether they have the strength and courage to challenge their normal reaction. And these people, we see someone that goes further, understands themselves, understand their limits, and also understands what they can do in the moment to change everything for the positive. So, for example, say a feeler, someone who decides and lives their lives through emotion and care, or the opposite of too much anger. These particular people will stay in their main emotion usually, or instead they will take it up on themselves to change their essence in the moment. By doing this, they have challenged their own core perspective and mindset. It's always a liberating thing to just actually do the thing that you always scared to do, and you always imagine you never would do, but you do it anyway. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea is completely rock solid. The trick is to go to something that you aren't that comfortable with, but actually can be your true shield. So when we're thinking about feeler, what springs to mind as the opposite of this? I'll give you another moment to think about that one. It's a good thing to kind of ponder. You ask yourself, what would you do in that moment? And it's up to you, and there is no wrong answer. My answer would be to this. I would think that the feeler would go to the controller mindset. That essence is a mark of defiance, a mark of actually taking off the emotional cap. When I say cap, I mean as in hat, and putting on the leadership cap. I feel very strongly that each one has an affinity towards a certain perk or overall defining quality, as you would put it. When this person does this, they become a different person. I'm sure you have seen it in life. Someone just all of a sudden changes their entire way of dealing with the world and how they say things, and ultimately their essence as a human being in front of your eyes. To people that do not know personality types and what this does in normal conversations when you're out and about and when you are in your own mind trying to decide what's going on with people around you, trying to decipher social cues that aren't told to you. There is an expansion on this entire idea where we go into circle of influences, how there is 4 of these, and each one is dependent on whether you know it and the other person or people collectively know it. For more examples, and I'll just put these down quickly, and then ask certain little questions on how you think this would apply to your frame of mind, because this is just my perspective of it. That's the beauty of this entire thing. We can all speak about this and have our own way of looking at it, and it be right. And then from that, we can all cross-reference, and then build up a massive knowledge base that give everybody an idea without even speaking the people's names of certain things that come up that can be easily solved just purely through understanding it from a logical level, rather than a very, very shrewd and narrow-minded, I'm only this, and that is all that matters type mentality. It's never been a healthy thing to be that way. When things don't go your way, or one day someone shows you a different personality, this course aims to provide you a very easy, understandable way of looking at life and the people in it around you. They are either your friends or enemies, but the idea is to understand them. You can only win over the hearts of decent-minded people and triumph over the evil dwellers of this earth by understanding the core essence of what makes them tick and how to predict their personality in the moment. Once you begin to look at people with less judgment, and actually analyzing the actual behavior in itself to ascertain which personality type it is. You can then yourself adjust and adapt in the moment to change your own personality type to get the best out of the situation. I try to make everything positive, but alas, life isn't just roses the entire time. So there will be parts of this course like delve into tough ideas and things you might not agree with. And to be fair, this is all my own mind and my mother's life's work. She designed it all herself. The last thing I ever did for her was make a website for her and constructed the very first audio interviews that discuss certain topics within this course that she was trying to get off the ground, trying her best to be self-employed for the first time in our life. Tragically, she wasn't able to complete her quest. But this is all her memory, and it's designed to help others. I would never feel right in taking money for this. I hope this helps. Right. So anyway, let's do some examples, and I'm just going to run them all very quickly. I won't bullet point them or go deck too deep. And then I'll just describe how I think maybe the opposite of them first, and then we'll delve into, what smart people do when they understand all of this knowledge and using it in that best interest, or challenging themselves to actually try something new and break away and be someone different. It's all about trying to adapt. Sometimes you don't want to adapt, like F that, and I get that. It's very easy to do, but trust me, sometimes it's nice to try to see if you can without the emotion behind it, from an analytical point of view, or at least one to try your least favorite of your personality types that you use day by day. So I'm just going to think, right, so if we think about a thinker, I have two opposites for this one really, because it's actually the one that actually has the most strongest idea of a foundation of transferable skill. Hold the transferable word, the transferable skill word. Yeah, I know it's the one that everybody uses. Drove me nuts, that ha 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 ha. But seriously, this one, you can actually have a truly clear line between how they connect to the different personality types we speak of. I'm also sure there are a lot of other ones, but they're more subdivisions. Think of genres in music. These are the overall core of that tree. I would say they would go to entertainer. Like if you think about it, and for a thinker, that probably most likely an introvert. So to kind of combat that, when they are putting a tough situation, not necessarily something that's traumatic, but just tough for them. Maybe they have to deal with it, an extrovert person, which is fine. Everybody's, got either, a very stimulated kind of vibe or much chilled out, relaxed vibe. It's great to have both. But anyway, I believe in this scenario, he or she would go to the defining skill inside of that personality type. For me, just as an anecdote that helps my point a bit, I usually go to thinker as my main core. It's the one I find I enjoy being in the most. When we think about personality types, it's not really about being beholden to something that you can't control. You have complete control. It's whether or not you allow yourself to have that control. We always decide in the moment to actually do something that we feel is the most natural course of action. When you analyze films, you discuss whether or not the character made the most appropriate action in the moment. And it's kind of the same here. If you change up and go with the flow and then actually apply something that you don't normally use, you might find it's amazing to use. Like, honestly, that's pretty cool. You can actually go and try something brand new without even really trying anything really new, just with a different attitude that you're actually trying from a base of knowing yourself enough and knowing which particular personality type you go into in that moment, that you begin to realize it's all just reactionary, isn't it? The aim of this course, ultimately, is to leave you in a proactive role. Enough with reactionaries, enough with being beholden to it. If you release yourself from the shackles of being completely defined by a single type, you can explain this to people around you. It'd be a great thing because they then understand that you actually are a very layered person. That's why I've always loved the analogy for onions and knowledge, string theory and cosmic interconnection. Thank you for listening to this first part. I will be starting this up soon. I just thought I'd put this out here as a very small kind of intro pitch. If anybody's interested, I might start a Patreon to get off the ground so I can actually get some funds behind this to make this the best possible course for you. Until it starts time, I will be making things in the same kind of format as this. Just to end, let's do two more for the small finale for this lesson. Entertainer. Now this is an interesting one, isn't it? It's kind of trying to put yourself in the shoes of a celebrity or an actor, actress, musician, or the most likely to be associated, the legendary comedian. Fun little theory of mine. If you think about it, the king's jester is actually the common day comedian, isn't it? In a sense. Don't get me wrong, I am not thinking of comedians of modern age in a derogatory sense or any kind of negative way from that particular line. It's more to just look at history and think about the lineage and the ancestry of the art and the craft. When it comes down to, there's many different types of lineages that come from historic roots that we don't really see very often today. However, personality types will always still have an ingrained lineage as well that tracks along with these types of people. Hence the time personality types and why it's such a common and frequently used term today. This is just my personal opinions. Lots of it is based on facts, but still at the end of the day, on my overall conclusions on those facts. Coming back to the entertainer, I would take a guess they would go to either a thinker or a controller. Not diving into this one is actually pretty hardcore because it's the most complex of the entire lot. Everybody is trying to be an entertaining these days, in a sense. Being an influencer, creator online, doing music, doing any kind of social media, we're all basically entertainers now. So in that way, this is the one that is the most complex because of that very fact. So going forward, you have to kind of look at this one as a bag of everything, a truly mixed bag. Man, I really want some sweets now. Haha. The reason I would say they would go to being a controller is that an entertainer usually relies on their wits and their humor to get through any of that main kind of roles in life. And they'll always stay, well, most of the time entertainers usually rely on sticking with the entertainer mode as far as they can go. And then they'll basically change it up to control the situation or room in the moment because they're not getting their way anymore via the humor. So they will take control of the event or something like that, kind of usually put negatively perceived action from others, which comes across as abrupt and also contrary to their entire way of being. Some might say that attempting to be all four is like being a fence eater, but it isn't. We will all naturally use all four of these. I myself recently tried my best to be a controller. I actually completely crashed, and it almost ruined my life. That's the case of me taking on something that I know in my heart I never would want to be, or am. Hence, why I struggled to find peace with it, as it was fake and I felt like I was an imposter. Now, if you change that up, and you do things now in a way that makes you feel like you are an imposter, not from any kind of external look or anything to do with things you can't really control, but I'm talking about specifically your mind and your attitude and your overall values is as a person. You can change anything here whenever you understand all of this, and you can move forward with the knowledge that you are very strong if you allow yourself to be. Now, finally, I will just go for a very quick way of looking at a controller. For me personally, it is the most interesting, only because it is my direct opposite essence. I find it abrasive, I find it rude, and I'll find it intimidating. I've never been a fan of authority or trying to go with being told what to do. I always try to be something different or odd or my own way, but going your own way only gets you so far. This is dedicated to my mum, whose favorite song was Fleetwood Mac's Go Your Own Way and was played at her funeral in April 2016. May you rest in peace up in the castle in the sky. Love you to the moon and back, always and forever.